Today I'm going to talk about a set of watches that absolutely suck. Let's get into it! Yes, and welcome to the Mad Watch Collector Show. Today we're going to talk about the watches that suck. This was supposed to be the worst watches of 2024. We've only just literally opened the door to 2025. There are already some very questionable releases we need to talk about. Most of these watches I have reviewed myself, but if I haven't had a hands-on review of it,
I guess take it with a pinch of salt.
I'm not having a go at you or your unborn child or your lovely mum and dad. This is just my views, my thoughts. All right? Now, before I talk to you about these watches, let me tell you about today's sponsor, who are Factor 75. Now, most of us want to eat and live healthily, don't we? With the knowledge of knowing just how important having a regular, enriched, balanced diet does for our bodies, we're all eager to look for companies offering a simple and easy solution to enjoy these healthy meals. Well, Factor 75 offer dietitian-approved, chef-prepared meals delivered to your door and ready to eat in 2 minutes. No prep, no mess, and a choice of over 40 weekly menu items from keto, calorie smart, protein plus, vegan and veggie options. Thanks to Factor 75 for sponsoring this show. Use my link to get 50% off and free shipping on your first Factor box. Do yourself a favor and get on that health train. Right, let's get into the show, and at the end I'm going to give a prediction of an absolutely huge thing I know is going to happen. You're going to want to stick around for that. Are you watches that suck ready? Let's go. Right, let's start off with one of my favourite brands, Casio, who last year released several brand new versions of the F91W, the absolute digital icon of the whole watch community, a watch you can buy for around £10, a watch that only loses 30 seconds a month, a watch that bridges the past to the future, first made in 1989, still feels and looks like the 80s, together with that really crappy backlight, but that watch is a classic example of the whole sum of its parts making something special. Well, the new F91s are flipping rubbish. Yes, it's like the F91 has gone to prison, been stripped of all his clothes, and is now known as a number. 91 probably. The whole reason why we love this watch isn't because of the case shape, it's the different coloured text and framing. That's what makes it an F91W. You take that away, it completely loses its character, might as well be a fake or a copy, and it left me feeling very empty inside. A great example of me buying a watch, knowing I'm gonna hate it, wasting my money, and then giving it away in a competition.
Well done for winning.
And the bashing doesn't stop there with Casio. I move on to G-Shocks. Last year I reviewed 2 new releases, which were officially G-Shock's thinnest and lightest G-Shocks so far. The GA2300 and the GDB500 that looked like a G-Shock square that had been squished in a vice. Yes, these watches were thin. Yes, these watches were light. But that made them not feel like G-Shocks anymore. G-Shock do have to be careful because the use of their carbon core guard means nowadays they're doing away more with the rubber resin because they have this forged carbon design. That means casing can be thinner and more lightweight. To me, it didn't feel like a G-Shock. It felt like a regular Casio. Plus, let's not beat around the bush, these 2 designs were whack. Next up, Tag Heuer. Yes, I can't do a watches that suck episode without talking about Keith Heuer. Sorry, Kith. Now, back in the 80s, Tag had a very successful line of small, playful quartz watches that looked like a cartoony version of a Submariner. Small cases, youngsters lapped them up. It was the first dial to have Tag Heuer on it after Tag purchasing Heuer. This was a big generational reference because it brought kids Formula One and Tag Heuer together. The watches back then only costed around £100 and something. Not too expensive for a young buck
that likes a bit of Nigel Mansell.
But what did Tag do? They collaborated with a fashion trendy designer where a cap online costs more than your weekly wage and wanted to charge you £1,500 for the privilege. The only young generation that's going to buy these watches are the trust funders
that have a silver spoon in each ear.
Now, had Tag brought out these watches without Kith, they would have done fantastically well, and they wouldn't have had the Kith collaboration tax on them. But if these watches were more around the, I don't know, £500 mark, crowds of people would be in joyous array. There'd be queues out the Tag Heuer store, which you never see. But no, it's an uppercut to those youngsters, and my advice is, kids, get a G-Shock. This next watch is titled, What Was I Thinking? I love my tall divers, you know? Watches that are capable of doing the thing they're sort of meant to do. I also love history. And when I was offered a Breitling Super Ocean Heritage at a great price, after looking at it, I absolutely snapped it up. Look at it. It's gorgeous. The dial is magnificent. I love the concave bezel. And it wore awesomely on my 6.5-inch wrist. This was not cheap, and I feel like I pulled the trigger way too early, because this diver is a dive style diver, meaning it's not really meant to be worn diving. The bezel is friction based, there is no unidirectional ratchet to it, and also the crown is not screw in. This watch was 100 meters water resistant. This was my worst purchase of the year, but it's not because it's not a great looking watch, it just didn't suit me at all. When I put this in the watch box next to the other watches, they were like,
who do you think you are?
I will never again buy a dive style watch.
When are you going diving?
That's beside the point.
Could you just click that like button, please? It really helps the channel. Thank you.
Now, a lot of people were talking about this chronograph last year, saying it's the bee's knees, a watch you should buy, and a watch that was far better than a Seiko. Yeah. I compared two very similar watches, well, similar on looks at first. First of all, the SSC 813P1, beautiful dimensions, the design impeccable, the bracelet fitted me lovely, just the proportions were just right, and that's what Seiko does so well. Their designing of their watches are superb. Well, this watch, the RATX 02035110B, is yes, £270 cheaper, but you can see that £270 cheapness in it. This is a diving chronograph. This watch was basically a Mako with a solar powered chronograph module replacing a 3-hand movement. The case was thicker, less refined. The proportions just not as good as that Seiko. Yes, it's an alright watch, but for anyone thinking about buying this one, don't do it. The SSC 813 is just a far superior watch in all ways. And fingers crossed, I might be getting one of these very soon. But anyway, I do like Orient. This one wasn't a patch on the Seiko. Now, I wanted to talk about this watch because it was almost blacklisted by every watch YouTuber on this platform, but I actually liked it. We're talking about the Hamilton Khaki Field QUARTZ. Yes, the new entry level into the Khaki range with Hamilton. The reason why everyone was so upset, this watch is the same price than what the Field Mechanical was 3-4 years ago. However, having compared this to the Field Mechanical, the dial is inspired by Hamilton British military history, whereas the Field Mechanical is more American influenced. You don't have the 24-hour markers anymore, and it just makes the dial that little bit cleaner. And me being a military watch fan,
mainly because they're so easy to read,
well, I actually fell in love with it. Give it another 6 months, you will be able to find this watch cheaper. And in actual fact, don't tell anyone this, okay? It's just our secret. If you are from the UK, you can still use this code in Francis & Gay's website to get a good chunk of money off. This code was only supposed to work for a month, so if you are interested in this watch, get it while this code still works. Get any Hamilton for that matter, apart from one. Now, this is a watch I was going to review this year, but after filming it, holding it, having it on the wrist, it made me question it. It made me question myself. It made me question my whole world. Now, we all love a good LED watch, don't we? It has massive historic relevance. And when Hamilton released the PSR Pulsar LED watch reissue, I was very excited. 40mm case, a little bit chunky on the wrist, but I did like it. It felt like a prop from a 60s sci-fi movie. Now, that watch is still holding its value at around £700, but Hamilton just released another PSR based on one they made in '74, and I just don't know why. So very similar to the PSR, this one has a bit more of an organic feel to it, but the watch is tiny. It's only about 25 millimeters by 30 millimeters in diameter, and the strap has such an aggressive taper to it, I'm not even sure Dobby would wear it. Now, you have to be a real geek to want one of these watches. How many females out there are that geeky that they want an LED watch? One of the annoying ones where you have to push a button to tell the time. Who the heck is this marketed towards? Who's gonna buy it?
No one!
Yes, and you can see some brands now have taken the prices right down, selling this almost over £100 cheaper. Bearing in mind the original PSR is still holding strong at £700. Now, I like the design, but why make it so aggressively small? Even me, a 6.5-inch wrister, feels that this is too small on his wrist. Just what was Hamilton thinking? Okay, now we come to watches that have just been released. We're only just about to pass January, and there are some absolute doozies. Let's talk about the milking machine that is Tudor Black Bay, specifically the big chunky chrono. Yes, now I've reviewed this chronograph and I absolutely love the design. I think the bi-compact look of a chronograph is absolutely sweet, but having it on my wrist, it just feels like I'm wearing my dad's watch. Way too chunky, the proportions are well off. To me, the Black Bay range almost feels like a line that was destined to be replaced. The Tudor Black Bay 58 has been far more popular than the original Black Bay, but Tudor tried to bring out all the new stuff like METAS certified in their big Black Bay range to try and pump the big Black Bay range. Whereas, you know, in a year's time, the same watch but in the Black Bay 58 range will have METAS certification. Well, it looks like they are absolutely pumping the hell out of this Black Bay chronograph, giving it different dial colours. This one. But their latest release is almost as if Tudor have gone back in time, you know, to just 2 years ago, and brought back a dial colour that we have all had enough of, thinking they're gonna sell some lovely chunky Black Bay chronos again. Yes, releasing the Flamingo Blue.
Tiffany.
No, this is a great flamingo. Have you never seen a flamingo? They're pink. It's hard to describe this blue any other way than
Tiffany.
if ever there is a release by a big brand that is so transparently ridiculous, just showing us watch punters what mugs they think we are, it's this one. A Black Bay 58 chronograph is definitely on the cards. Whether it's this year or next year, you can guarantee that it's going to happen, but before it does, we're just going to milk the heck out of this chronograph we've been struggling to sell because it's a bit chunky, and we're going to give it a brand new tried and tested colour that not many people know about.
Tiffany.
No, it's flamingo blue. It's the colour of their eyes, I think.
Tiffany.
Now, I'm a good fan of Oris. They've been around a long time, you know. However, Swiss watchmaking collaborating with the Muppets just doesn't seem like it goes together. It's not, you know, bread and cheese, you know? More like bread and brick. A year or two ago, Oris brought out the Pro Pilot with a lovely green coloured dial showing the lovable frog Kermit in the date window. He would only come up, however, on the 1st of each month. So every other day, you're questioning why you bought the watch. You're questioning why you bought the watch anyway, but still, Oris have not stopped there with their Muppets collaboration. They've made a smaller Pro Pilot, which is quite cool to be fair. They've given it an electric-y pink dial and put Miss Piggy on the back. It's almost as if they're embarrassed about having Miss Piggy on this watch. Now, yes, I'm all for fun in this watch game, you know what I mean? But also, I like a bit of business sense. We know that Disney own the Muppets, and having anything trademarked with the Muppets comes at a cost, doesn't it? Who the heck is buying Miss Piggy Pro Pilot? I've heard a lot of people say,
Come on, MWC. It's fun. My wife likes it.
does she? For £2,500, does she still like it?
No, she don't like it anymore.
But hey, listen, if you want a lovely Oris Pro Pilot with a Miss Piggy face squished up against your wrist so no one can see it, because you may be slightly embarrassed that you've got a Muppet in your watch, you go for it. Anyway, Oris, I'm still waiting for an animal chronograph. Let me know when it comes out, would you?
Make sure he's on the front of the dial.
QUARTZ. just decompress, MWC. That's a lot of ranting. I do apologise on that. But I hope I've done it in a fun way. Remember, I'm not having a go at you. If you like these watches, that's great. That's all that counts, really. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for. My prediction for 2025. This is going to be sensational. Get your pens. Get your pens and a pad, because you're going to want to write this down. I believe in 2025, we're going to have at least 2 new references of a Tissot PRX. Yes, the brand formerly known as Tissot last year came out with loads of PRXs with gradient dials and also a crappy carbon forged one. But let me tell you, I don't think the milking machine is over, because like the Omega Moon Swatch, the machine never stops. Don't buy a PRX this year. There are a lot of other great watches out there.
Hello.
Now, before we finish, my last rant is a watch I've recently purchased. It's the DW5000-R, the reissue of the very first G-Shock, the DW5000C. When it was released, I had to buy it straight away. And even though I do not regret it one bit, we have to talk about the legibility of these screens lately from Casio. Because this is not the first Casio I've had where if you look head on at the watch, the screen looks faded. Yes, at different angles it looks very clear, but like I said in the actual show, the best angle for me looking at a watch is the no angle, straight on. And if that is faded, what is going on there? Sort it out, Casio. So there we go, watches that suck, in my opinion. Now is the time to get it off the chest, people. In the comments below, really spew out some negativity on watches you don't like. Thank you so much for watching till the end. If you want a bit more of the Mad Watch Collector, click there and join. But if I've got you for a few more minutes, why don't you click this one? This is, well, it is remarkable. That's what they say in the Dudoin. Oh, you'll love it. Go on, click it. You'll love it. Click it.